There are two cities that are referenced numerous times in the Bible. One, of course, is the city of Jerusalem. The other is the city of Babylon. The book of Revelation contains 404 verses. 44 of the verses, or about 10%, refer to an entity known as Babylon. Two chapters, Revelation 17 and 18, focus on a Babylon that exists on earth following the rapture. Who or what is the Babylon of prophecy? What role does it have in the end time scenario, and what does it tell us about the future? The city and territory known as Babylon is located in present-day Iraq, and it is important biblically in four ways. First of all, it is important as a definite city. Secondly, it is important nationally because of the nation of Babylon. It's mentioned in several biblical contexts. Perhaps its most famous king is Nebuchadnezzar, frequently mentioned in the book of Daniel. Thirdly, Babylon is important spiritually because it represents the seat and source of rebellion against God, particularly in the form of false religions. Fourthly, Babylon is mentioned in end times passages as a place of religious darkness and commercialism and greed. The religion of ancient Babylon was polytheism, a religion of many deities. In the ancient Babylonian flood account, the so-called Gilgamesh epic, which in many ways parallels the biblical flood account, there are many gods, some quite childish and lacking moral character. What do we know about that entity called Babylon? There is a useful rule to follow in serious Bible study. It is the rule of first occurrence. If we want to know the identity of Babylon, we have to look at the first occurrence or the first mention of the word in the Bible. That's always very helpful. According to Genesis 10, verses 8 through 10, Nimrod, the youngest and most notorious son of Cush, was a mighty hunter, a phrase that may indicate great craftiness and wickedness. His name, Nimrod, literally means let us rebel. It is possible that he had great strength and was successful in slaying many of the very large and dangerous animals that lived on earth after the flood of Noah. Nimrod built a great kingdom, with one of his major cities being called Babel, meaning confusion. It was in the land of Shinar, later known as the place where the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar erected a huge 90-foot statue honoring himself. According to Daniel chapter 3, three young men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, refused to comply with the king's request to bow down and honor the king's statue. God created man to multiply and fill the earth and have dominion over the earth. However, in the next chapter, Genesis chapter 11, we find that the people who came to the land of Shinar refused to obey God. Instead of scattering, they erected a ziggurat, a pyramid-type structure with steps. The ancients believed that such a structure would be a channel of communication whereby the gods could come down to the earth and commune with man. Babel came to be known as Gateway of the Gods. So not only did the people of Shinar refuse to populate the earth as instructed by God, they wanted to receive the blessings and the wisdom from the gods. They said, let us build us a city and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. According to Genesis 11, verse 4, in Scripture, kings, emperors, and national leaders are representative of their people, of their nation, and their character. The Caesars, for example, were types of the Antichrist. Many have concluded that The Antichrist is in some way an offshoot of a revived Roman Empire. For this reason, it is significant that one of the most detailed explanations of the origin and reign of Satan is in a passage that initially starts with a reference to the king of Babylon. In Isaiah 14:4 we read, that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon. But a few verses later, in almost the same breath, we read, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will be like the Most High. You see, evil is often territorial. Hence, some speak of territorial spirits. Satan's connection with Babylon, a real location in the ancient world, and even today, is typical. In the account of the Gadarene demoniac, for example, Legion, quote, besought him much that he would not send them away out of the country, Mark 5:10. They did not want to be expelled from their territory. And Daniel chapter 10, which provides an account of intense spiritual warfare and struggle, the heavenly messenger relates that the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days, verse 13. In verse 20, the messenger reports, and when I am gone forth, lo, the prince of Grecia shall come. So evidently, two territorial spirits, one associated with Persia, the other with Greece. The consistent connection between Babylon and rebellion against God puts an indelible, what should we say, stamp upon Babylon. There is good reason to believe that false religions, even the false religions that we see in today's world, find their origin in Babylon and can be categorized as Babylonianism. The trans movement, for example, the redefining of marriage to include something that was never meant to be, the celebration of sexual deviancy and the wanton destruction of human life in the womb and calling it health care, all of these are marks of Babylonianism. Several authors, such as Zev Porat and Jonathan Cahn, have suggested, I think quite correctly, that the profound spiritual issues that we are facing at the present time are rooted in the return of the gods of antiquity. In his book, The Return of the Gods, Jonathan Cahn suggests that the collective mythologies associated with the ancient gods are the clues that reveal what is actually happening in the present hour, and I think he's right. Revelation chapters 17 and 18 provide the final biblical revelation focusing on Babylon. I understand the word Babylon to refer to a definite location in Iraq and also to a system of devotion to demonic forces. In other words, Babylon is much more than just a code word for evil. I like the way Dr. Mark Hitchcock puts it, quote, after the rapture of the church and after the tribulation period begins, Babylon will rise again, both a literal city and the pagan religious system that is rooted in it. Humans will again organize in rebellion against the one true God, just as they did at the Tower of Babel. The tower and the city represent the two aspects of Babylon that continue today. Religious rebellion and apostasy, Revelation 17, balanced against political and commercial power, Revelation chapter 18, and close quotes. The existence of end-time Babylon will be cut short. Revelation 17:16 says, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. Revelation 18:2 reveals that a powerful angel comes down from heaven saying, quote, Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils and the hold of every foul spirit and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. Now, there are two closing thoughts I want to share. First, I know that the Joe Bidens and the radical abortionists and the woke crowd are causing millions of Americans, as well as people around the world, untold grief and misery. Open borders, inconsistent law enforcement, the curtailing of our God-given liberties are all onerous miseries that we should not have to bear. But these people need to be pitied. They are bound by the chains of Babylonianism. That's really what it is. These chains will never be severed unless they turn to the chain breaker, Jesus Christ. Secondly, in the throes of a society gone mad, Christians need to live consistently and faithfully, ministering to one another and living lives that are pleasing to the Lord. And I think that's really the significance of Revelation 17 and 18. We learn how things are going to unravel in the future, but we also learn much about what's happening to us at the present time.